with a Business is brought to you by Audible.com.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Married with a Business. I'm Craig.
And I'm Allison.
And we're Married with a Business. We're here to share tips and tricks and stories and whatever about being married and owning a business and all the things that go along with that.
Yep, all of those things.
How you doing this week, Allison?
I am good, but I'm having a crisis of confidence.
Oh, yeah?
So I got in my stocking from Santa this Sudoku book, right?
Okay.
And the first, it's broken up by very easy, medium, hard. It's really hard, and it's shaking my confidence in how smart I am.
Well, in your defense, I don't think you've ever done, I've known you now for well over 20 years, almost 25 years. I don't think I've ever seen you do Sudoku before.
No, I mean, I did once a long time ago. I tried it, but it's like really hard. And now I know I don't like puzzles.
Well, maybe it'll be good. It'll open, we talk about your mom who's in her 70s, like she does crossword puzzles. And I keep saying why, because she's like, it keeps my brain going.
Right.
It's good to do puzzles because it keeps your brain going.
I was doing a word search before that, and word searches were so much easier. So I'm having a crisis of confidence in myself.
Well, I have confidence in you. You'll be fine. So, Allison, super exciting, something big. This episode.
Yes.
Episode number 100 of our podcast.
100. You've kept me doing this 100 episodes.
I have kept you doing this.
Congratulations.
I have to drag you down into the studio and we do this. No, you like doing it. We started this for those of you that maybe have just started listening in the past few episodes or whatever. We started this podcast over COVID. We had talked about it prior to that. We had talked about doing a podcast about what it's like to be us and the things that we go through on a daily basis, having, working together and living together and raising children and all of that. And so, finally we had some time, I guess, or we were home a lot and needed something to do. So we finally started over COVID doing the podcast, and we've come a long way with it. There's been a lot.
Yeah, it's been really fun. It's been fun to talk to you. Sometimes it's like therapy. It's been fun to talk to other couples and see how they make it work. And it's been really cool that we've gotten to bring in industry experts for various topics.
Well, and I think, what we kind of wanted to talk about on the show is we wanted to talk about things that maybe we've learned over these 100 episodes. And I will tell you, and I think you would agree with me, like I think one of the things that I've learned about us is that, and this is going to sound mushy, I really love working with you. Like I love the fact that we do this, like that we have a business and we work together. And it's funny, people say to us all the time, like, I don't understand how you work with your wife all day and then come in and have it and you know what? I don't understand the people that don't do this.
Well, I always think, and part of it is the way that our relationship has started. We started with a working relationship. That's how we got to know each other.
Right.
And I think that you and I often feel most connected when we're doing a project together. Yesterday, we were in the garage repainting the home show booth, and when we roofed and sided our first house together, and when we built the basement in our first house together. I think that sometimes you and I and it's just like being a couple at work too, but when we have a common vision and a common goal that we are looking to achieve, I think that's when you and I feel the most connected. So this is part of that, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, when you put it that way, you think about like when we go on vacation, right? And we go away, we're supposed to be away and, and away from things. But like some of our favorite times are on vacation is like when we're going for a walk on the beach and talking about, work or work life stuff or, those you're not wrong. Like, I think that we found ways that, this working together thing that we do does connect us and keeps us, close with each other. When, it's kind of like, it's important that your significant other and you have like hobbies or things that you do together. It's just our thing is like huge that we do together.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and what are some of the things that we've seen in the couples we've interviewed? I definitely have seen common threads. People have used similar language to talk about their relationships. A lot of people have talked about shared visions, yin and yang, the balancing each other's personalities.
Right. And I think about that, a lot. a lot of the people that we've interviewed, the husbands and wives that we've interviewed, it's a lot of that. It's a lot about how their personalities. He's the outgoing one and I'm the introvert, or she's the one who wants to go and meet and talk to all the people and I like getting the stuff done. And so I think that's really interesting to kind of like dig apart, is how much, when you talk with couples that own and operate businesses together, how much of that they do together is the balancing of each other, how this person brings this to the relationship and this person brings this to the relationship, and it balances us.
Yeah, I've also been intrigued that a lot of people have pre-identified which one of them is the visionary and which one of them is an implementer. A lot of them talked about why they're successful is because they've found their lane and they stay in it. We've talked to a couple couples who said it took them a while to find their groove because they both wanted to do the same thing, or they overlapped on each other. Well,
and I also think when you think about it from a marriage standpoint, it's healthy for the relationship. And I think that, there's that fine line, right? But if you can figure it out, if you talk with each other and you communicate with each other, it's very healthy for the relationship because you know where the other person stands. I think there are challenges in it for sure. But I think that, when you think about some of those husbands and wives teams that we've talked to, they've figured that balance out. I think about Jen and Ed Geswell, very similar to us. They run a business that's very similar to us, and they've figured out that balance of like, okay, here are the things that, Ed's really good at. Here are the things that Jen's really good at. Together we make a perfect business owner.
Right. And, Jesse and Emily Cole from the Savannah Bananas said the same thing. Emily really talked about communication, getting Jesse and her talking the same language in how they interact. And, and she said the same thing. We both came from a similar background and we wanted to do the same things. And when we were doing the same things, that wasn't working. So what was Jesse really good at? What was Emily really good at? And finding that balance.
Right. And they've built a juggernaut now working together with the Savannah Bananas and that how huge that has become on it. So yeah, it's really interesting. I think that, also it makes me realize that there are some hard parts about it too, that maybe we don't talk about enough on the show. But like one of those things is like, I think about like my friends that don't work with their wives, they come home every day. And if they've had a bad day at work, they can like vent to their wife and talk about it. It's a little harder for you and I because we both emotionally wear it when one of us has had a hard day.
Yeah, we're very empathic that way, I think, which is not great. And we haven't come up with some good tactics for that. So if anybody works with that, please call in and we will talk to you about how to make us less empathic with each other. Like I can tell when you're in a bad mood, even though you're like, no, I'm fine. And you know that I know.
Right.
And it kind of brings us both to not a great place sometimes.
Well, and we've always had that struggle. We've always had that struggle of the other person's emotions bring us to that emotion. If I'm down, if I'm having a rough week or whatever, it brings you to that level. And what's funny about it is I think for years you and I have tried to develop this whole thing where it's like only one of us is allowed to have a bad day, right? And so like if I'm having a bad day, you're like, I'm great, and you're like super bubbly and you try to pull me up. But it doesn't always work that way.
And I think you're nicer than I am when we're in that situation. I think you're nicer to me about trying to balance than I am to you.
What are some other things, Allison, over these 100 episodes that stand out to you? What is something that, maybe we've talked about that has really, jumped out to you?
I don't know if it's something that we've talked about, but I think something that stands out to me is that we're not such an anomaly as sometimes I think we are, because we don't have any friends who run businesses with their spouses. So I think sometimes I feel like we're on an island, and it's been really nice to talk to some of these other couples who are balancing little kids and parents and work and their spouse and trying to do all of those things at once, because it has made me feel like we're not alone, and it has helped me to see, okay, where we're on the right track and where we're not. And I feel like sometimes when we're on these calls, like, you are my new best friend. You just don't know it yet.
Right. I mean, I think back because, we did, when we started the podcast, I think like the first, I don't know, maybe 20 episodes, 25 episodes, we didn't have anybody on the interview. It was just us talking about our story every week and, and giving, sort of business and some of our ideas or some of the things that we do and trying to share those. But then we kind of early on said, hey, maybe it was like 20 episodes in. We really need to share some other people's stories.
And it was hard to reach them because there isn't like an avenue. You can Google women-owned businesses. You can Google men-owned businesses. I mean, that's not hard. Most of them are. But to find, there's no great resources for couples in business together.
Yeah, and I can remember early on, I think it was with Shelley and Chad Lynch, who owned a CPR training company, the ACLS. And they were the first ones that I think we talked to that we were like, wow, they're in the same boat that we're in. They had like 2 young kids. They're trying to get them through. They've got 3 kids maybe, and they're trying to get them through, schooling and extracurricular activities and run and grow the business and train people. And their business was also a business that had it wasn't like a 9 to 5. They had weird hours sometimes and Saturdays and trainings. And so, being able to commiserate's not the right word, but being able to talk with them and understand that somebody's been in the same boat that we're in.
And it's nice to be able to brainstorm and share resources and tactics of how you make it work. Some people have decided, okay, we're just going to hire a nanny and they're going to deal with the kids' activities and those kind of things. Or like us, part of the reason I like doing this is because the kids don't have to go to after school and I can pick them up from school. And yeah, I have to work around them in the afternoon, but they're with me and I'm not missing out on those opportunities. But that's what works for us. And what works for somebody else's family isn't the same, but we can share resources. I don't cook, so we found Home Chef, and that's been a great resource for us. Whereas other people just do a lot of takeout or they have a chef come in.
Right. And I think that, doing the interviews and getting to meet some of these people, especially from when we talk to a lot of we've had a lot of people on the interview, but especially when we talk to the husbands and wives, and we really find the motivation behind why they are doing what they're doing. And one of the stories that I think will always resonate with me, one of the things that kind of, will always sit with me is when we got to talk to Dave and Deb Doyle, Mama Deb's food truck and catering and and at the time, and this was 2 years ago, we talked to Deb. She had just battled through cancer and had, she had opened the food truck and they were doing catering and they were starting to sell their own sauces in jars. And it was something that, after going through that battle, after, having cancer and dealing with all that, was something that she really wanted to do. She wanted to have her own food truck and to see her husband, Dave, really just back her, right? He was there and he was like, it's going to make you happy and we need to be happy together, and they did it together
and they wanted to spend the time that she had left together as a family.
Right. And then, unfortunately, last year, I think, and we've talked about it on the show, Deb, after battling cancer for years, passed on, and to see Dave still continue to this day, and their daughters continue to this day to keep the company going in her name and her honor is great. And it was one of those, for me, and for you obviously too, it's very emotional.
Yeah, sorry. I'm crying.
It's getting to meet some of the people that we have gotten to meet over these 100 episodes has been awesome. I mean, we talk about the cool and the fun ones, like Jesse and Emily and getting to meet the young professor, Matt Grafer and his wife, those were great, but also some of these smaller businesses and Deb and Dave and a lot of them have just really made me feel great about what we are doing as a husband and wife team and what other people are doing.
Yeah. And, and some of them have been in business a long time, like Jonathan and Melissa Pace from Smoky Denmark, who make sausages out in Texas, and other couples were new and are just finding their footing. And so what are they seeing? What have they both been seeing in what has worked and what hasn't worked in their businesses over time has been really fascinating.
Yeah. It's really great that, we've gotten all different kinds, right? We've gotten people who have been in business a long time and worked together a long time as a husband and wife team. Like you said, Jonathan and Melissa, they went to college together and then they had business together, and then on the other end, you have people that have only been working together for a few years or even months in some cases. So yeah, it's definitely been interesting. And then, on the other hand, with the other thing with the interviews that we've had is we've had a lot of people who are sort of in the industry of working and helping coach husbands and wives. I mean, even just this season when we had on Kristen Ross Vogel and Focus Forward Coaching and how she helps family-owned businesses like fight through some of that stuff.
Yeah, and what I really loved about Kristen was talking about how do you combat gossip in your office. And I had an incident just this week where we were talking. I was like, guys, we're just spending too much time chit-chatting, gossiping. Like this isn't helpful for any of us.
Yeah, and then a little bit of a preview here, guys. Next week's episode is really phenomenal. We have an interview with Robert and Kaylee Fukui, who have written a book called Tandem that's about husbands and wives working together in an entrepreneur kind of setting. It's really great. Just make sure you listen to that episode. It's a great interview. It's a great time. But I think it's also, Allison, it's been important and fun for us to be able to share sort of our stories and what we go through.
Yeah, I think one of the things that comes up a lot of times in my networking groups, because we've been doing it so long and we've had so much experience with this stuff, is we do end up coaching some of these younger people or people who are newer to business or newer to working with their spouse and share our experience. And so it's nice to be able to just put out there, what we've done and what has worked and hasn't worked, because none of us want to reinvent the wheel.
Oh no, there's plenty of it. There's plenty that's worked and plenty that hasn't worked. And I think that's the thing is like especially if I go back and I listen to an older episode and I go, wow, we've come a long way since then, or man, we were doing it this way 2 years ago. Why aren't we doing it that way anymore?
Right. Sometimes your best learning can be not necessarily what you're going through, but watching what worked or didn't work for other people. We've been in mastermind groups for the 20 years I've been in business, and some of our best advice has come from other people saying, please don't make the mistake I've made.
Well, and we say it all the time when we talk to people and when we talk about the show, like, together we'd be a phenomenal business if we all owned a business together, like all of our interviewees and people that we know, being able to extract and take, even if it's a little bit of information, and you taught me very early on, when going to conferences, because when we were younger, and we still go to a lot of conferences, even if you walk out of that room, you sit in a room for an hour and you listen to somebody speak, even if you walk out of that room with one idea, one thing, it's worth it.
One good thing that you can implement made the time worth it, because I've come out of them with pages and pages of notes, which have been great, but then get filed in a drawer. If you listen to each podcast and get one nugget that you can implement, then that was time really well spent.
So the one for this podcast is to go back and listen to some of the old podcasts to get those ideas out.
Yes. Or to visit the resource page. Our resource page has a lot of great things that I've been popping up there that I think are helped us and would be beneficial for other people.
Well, and I think at the end of the day, that's why we decided to do this podcast, right? And that's why we kind of wanted to do what we do is we have these 20 years of experience of working together.
40.
Combined 40. I always like when people say that. We have a combined 40 years of experience being married and working together in a business. I think that
we're fun too, guys.
I think that the thing for me is that we've had a lot of ups and downs. We've had hard times. We've gone through, rough economic times and good economic times and maybe back to rough economic times. Like we've dealt with a lot of stuff, and one is I kind of wanted to catalog it, right? I kind of wanted to, 20 years from now to go back and listen to it again. Because
I want to?
Well, what's funny about it is I remember a specific conversation with you when we were first working together. We were living in an apartment, and I remember saying to you, "Oh, it's so expensive. We're never going to own a house. We're never going to be able to get out of the rat race that we're in." And you were like, "You need to stop. You need to, you had to slap me across the face and reset me."
Well, I know exactly. We were hiking in the woods, and I was like, are you kidding me? We're 25 years old. And yes, at 25 years old, you think you know everything and you have tons of life experience. but you don't. Now that I'm almost 45, looking back at my 25-year-old self, it's like, ugh. But yeah, sometimes you have to perspective, right? It's a matter of looking at being at the bottom of the mountain, the middle of the mountain, or the top of the mountain of your life, and in that perspective.
And there's part of me at 45-year-old Craig, there's part of me that can't wait when 65-year-old Craig is listening back saying, oh, that kid, he just didn't know. I'm excited about that. I feel, because I'll have grown. I'll have gone and continued to, go on and grow and get better. And I'll be able to go back and say, 45-year-old Craig didn't even know it was coming down the road.
It's like your just personality profile, right? As you have life experiences, your profile changes because your perspective changes. I was much more of an aggressive person in my early 20s than I was in my late 20s because I was stalked at work. So that made me less aggressive and less willing to do certain things, right?
Right. It was definitely a moment in your life that changed a lot. Changed you a lot.
Yeah. There's not nearly as much D, and I will keep my D in the conference room with you and Mark as opposed to outside.
Right. Exactly. So it's interesting to be able to go back and look at those things. And, what we really also want to say is thank you. Thank you to especially those of you who have listened to all 100 episodes.
There's a few.
There's a special few, I know, that have listened to all 100. We appreciate that. And we appreciate when you like and you share it and you tell other people and you post about it on Facebook or on the Twitter or Instagram. We really do.
Yeah. And, we're looking to talk to more people. We're looking to talk to more couples who are in business and more professionals who help small businesses. So if you know somebody or you are somebody, fill out the form on our website so that we can talk to you and get you scheduled to share your experiences.
Yeah, visit our website, marriedwithabusiness.net. On there, you can find our resources. You can listen to old episodes on there and find links to old episodes. You can see pictures of us. You can hear stories about us, read stories about us. And you can also fill out that form to be on the show. So definitely check it out, marriedwithabusiness.net. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at BizMarried. We're on there. Just search for us. And we also post on there a lot as well. We appreciate everything. We also appreciate Audible.com, who's been with us since day one. You can get a free 30 days of Audible by going to audibletrial.com/bizmarried, and you get a free 30 days. You can listen to books. I'm a big Audible person. I don't really read a lot. I don't sit and read a book a lot. I like to listen to books.
Yeah, I listen to them in the car between drop off and pick up from school. And every time somebody suggests a book, I just stick it on my Amazon list. And so I've got a whole library ready to go. Yeah. We've got some great recommendations on the website as well.
Yeah, definitely. So you can go to the website and find some of those recommendations of audiobooks too. But visit audibletrial.com/bizmarried. You get a free 30 days of Audible on us. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully, Allison, this is the first 100 of what may be 1,000 shows.
We will see.
We'll see how long we go, right? All right. Well, we'll be back next week with another show, so definitely check that out. It's a great interview, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And remember, not only is it important to focus on your business, but also your marriage, because we're married with a business.